I hope you can see my screen. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for the feedback. To thank you everyone for joining today for our session on next generation project management techniques with Paul Cuypers, and which Paul is coming from Norway, and he's joining us today in this event. Actually, just a small like a fun fact. We met with Paul during the Global Summit series in April in Berlin, and I had the honor to assist Paul during his presentation, and he offered as a thank you to be here today with us to give this presentation, to share his time, his ideas with us. So thank you, Paul, so much for this. Thank you for doing this, for joining us here, and really looking forward. I had a very nice time on the Global Summit series, listening to your presentation, and really I look forward for you sharing this your knowledge with everyone else today. Regarding the agenda for today, so I will be doing some short introduction into PMI Germany chapter local group Darmstadt, suggested conduct, and a short introduction of Paul, of our speaker today. Then the value added, the most important part of today is Paul's presentation. And then at the end, we continue with the information about next events, a small rating of this event with 5 questions. It will take some 2-3 minutes. And we are going to close the event by showing you also the PDU claim code. Starting from the suggested conduct, it would be great if you don't speak, to mute your microphones, and we hope you don't mind if we see some microphone is open, that we mute it if there are noises coming. Please use your full name for the webinar so that we can identify you for the PDUs. We can share you later the slides, and we can share you later we can contact you later regarding the PDU again. If you would like to share your video, use chat for asking questions, for commenting, and we will be following this while Paul is presenting. If you would like to, you can also use the chat to share your LinkedIn, because the intention of this whole event, of this whole meeting, and all of our meetings happening is to share knowledge, to communicate with other project management professionals, to learn from each other, and to openly discuss maybe some challenges or some ideas that we are having in this very beautiful and diverse sphere of project management. You are invited to contact our speaker, Paul. I hope you don't mind if people add you on LinkedIn, stay in touch with you after the presentation. This session is recorded, it's going to be recorded, and we would really ask to please not use the AI bots of this event, and which are doing transcripts. We're trying to deny the bots of entering the meeting, but it can happen. So we really ask not to use these ones. We don't know what will happen in the future, but for this moment, it's for the organizers. We are recording the session, but we would really, we don't allow these AI bots. And at the end of the day, I think it's very clear, and it's just one small reminder for every day to be nice and to be professional when asking questions, when discussing with one another, and so on. The PMI Germany chapter in general is in a very active and very international community. It has more than 20 local groups in 5 different regions. The regions you can see on the left side, colored differently. It has more than 3,000 members, and it's organizing different events, projects, working groups on a regional and on a local level. Where the sign is here is where we are at the moment. We are in local group Darmstadt, and in regard to our local group Darmstadt, we are an English-speaking community, and we are 5 volunteers from 5 different countries. Soon we are going to be 6 volunteers from 5 countries. More I will not tell you, just that small information. But maybe try to guess which will be the country which has 2. I know the obvious choice is Germany, but stay in touch. We are doing 2 free online events per month with great speakers like today, like Paul, and many other speakers all around the world. And we are having one round table, which is happening in Darmstadt also once per month. Our LinkedIn group I think it had 365 at the moment days of the year, and 365 members. And again, even that group we are using to share knowledge with you, to share the new events and so on. So feel free to join the group as well. About today's speaker, we have Paul Cuypers, and he's an experienced and certified program, project, change and test manager, and agile coach and an independent researcher working in Norway. He has worked through different spheres in different types of projects in different industries, and he's an international speaker and course instructor on many topics. And he enjoys developing next generation project management techniques, and he enjoys also investigating and supporting these theoretical models. So Paul, with this being said, I would love to give the microphone to you, the stage to you, and we are really looking forward to hear your presentation and to learn more about the new project management techniques.
All right, and I'll start with hijacking the screen and go to your presentation mode. Thank you very much. All right, do you have my screen?
Yes, all good.
All right, perfect. So thank you very much for having me. As Elena said, we met in the PMI conference in Berlin, and Elena was the volunteer helping setting up the room, making sure that the microphone was working and everything, and because you're nervous for such events and you don't want to have stupid things messing things up. As a thank you, and then I found out she was a volunteer, and as a thank you, I said, well, I could run a course for you. And then Elena looked at the courses and said, well, I cannot decide. Can you do all? So that's what we're going to be doing today. So you get 3 courses, the really quick and dirty version of the courses. First one is called Power Kanban. The next one is Agile Rolling Wave Technique. And the other is how to create PMO capability. So it's going to be very broad, basically a summary of 3 courses. At the end of each course, there will be a summary, and there's time to ask questions. As you know, I'm presenting, so I can't see the teams. So I can't see whether you're raising your hands or whether you are asking questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll answer the questions during the Q&A after. So it's going to be 3 sessions of roughly 15 to 20 minutes and a Q&A after that. Are you happy with that? So before we start, let's do a quick introduction. Are we mentally agile, and what do we mean by that? Well, let's take a look at when Agile started. And it started in 1995, and it's 2024 this year, so 25 is next year. So it's going to be 30 years ago that Agile was introduced. And I think it was the paper on Scrum, and was presented at the Uppsala conference. And very recently, I talked to a guy, a software developer, came straight out of university, and he saw. Sorry?
Thank you.
I think someone is I'll try to take care of this. Sorry.
So I was talking to a guy who was joining our company, who was straight out of university, and he saw my gray hair or lack of gray hair, and he said, like, well, do you use any modern project management techniques? And I thought, oops, something has happened, apparently something that I wasn't aware about. And then he started talking about Agile. I said, well, I started with that in 1995. And then he looked at me like, my goodness, you're ancient. And in 1995, I worked for a software company, and our technical director, he was very much in touch with the times, and he introduced Scrum around that time. So Agile is 30 years old, and if you're driving a 30-year-old car, probably most people won't refer to that as a modern car. Of course, Agile has developed. What was presented in 95 was a rough version, or the foundation maybe, and several things got added on, and more papers were written and more books. But what is interesting here is that PMI, Agile Certified wasn't established until 2012. So that is 17 years later. Now you would think that, all right, when something new comes along, that you will jump on it and try to experiment with it and benefit from that. But it took quite a long time for the establishment, which was PMI and Prince, to pick it up. Prince 2 Agile was even slower, was in 2013 when the Prince 2 Agile guide came out. So again, you would expect two things. First of all, it took quite a long time. And the second thing is that how they managed the emergence of a new technique or a new method. Here's the thing, you would expect that, okay, you would merge the existing frameworks, the best of the existing frameworks with the best parts of the new things. But that wasn't what they did. They created a separate guide and a separate book and a separate certification. So they reacted in the same way. So here are we now. It is 2024, it's almost 30 years old. And we're going to be looking today, we're going to be looking at what has happened since that time and what are the next generation techniques that have emerged after after Agile became mainstream. So that is the topic of today. And the question is, are we mentally agile and how do we define that? Well, I define mentally agile as, all right, you have a certain view on the world, but if you then get new information that challenges those views, are you then capable of saying, all right, I have an open mind and those arguments sound logically, I will accept based on logical arguments. And as you can see here, the long time it went, our community wasn't exactly mentally agile. It took 17 years before the first certification was created. So we're going to be looking at some new ideas. I'm going to be challenging your brain, maybe frying your brain. You don't have to disagree, but give the ideas a thought. Finally, I'd like to say that none of these ideas were created with AI. So there's no bots or no AI. This is human thinking and human research that has been involved in this, in everything that's going to be presented. So I'd like to start with doing a poll. And please read the following statement. Agile methodology does not exist. Now, if there's anyone in the public who agrees with this, can you please type yes in the chat? So the hypothesis is Agile methodology does not exist. So please go to your chat.
We have 2, 3. We're staying on 3.
Staying on 3. 3 out of
4, 5,
10%.
5.
Oh, 6.
5 out of 40. 1, 8. 12, 13%.
All right. Okay. We'll do the poll again.
It depends.
we'll do the poll again at the end of this. We'll do the poll again at the end of this sequence and see if there's any change. All right. Power common is our first technique. Everybody wants success. Everybody wants project success because it's important. We spend a lot of time and money in projects. In order to have success, we need to have control. Now, the next question is, if you want to have control, what are then the dimensions of the project that you want to have control over? And then the next question is like, okay, if you want to control those dimensions, then you need information. So projects are all about information. So when you ask project managers about what dimensions of the project would you like to control, you get the typical answers like, well, time, cost, scope, resources, what are the benefits? I want to control my activities, the deliverables, quality, whatever that might mean. But if you look at all those dimensions, they have something in common. At a meta level, they are affected by uncertainty. For example, time. You have your estimate of your lead hour, your lead time and your work hours, But the uncertainty factor is, how accurate are my estimates? Same goes for cost. Yes, I have a budget, but how accurate is my estimate? I have a scope statement, but which parts of the scope am I missing? My resource estimates, which resources do I have on my radar and which resources do I have unaccounted for? Benefits. We think there will be benefits. We'll estimate the benefits, for example, the efficiency savings or the cost savings, but will they be there? Same for the activities. Yes, we have a plan, but what activities are missing? We have a deliverable breakdown structures. What deliverables are we seeing? Which ones are we missing? So at the meta level, what you want to control is uncertainty. That brings us to the next question, like, what is uncertainty? Well, if you imagine that this square represents all the information that is relevant to your project. Now, we are not gods. We are limited. So the first limit is that there is information that is available and there's information that's unavailable. And the second limitation is that there is information that we are aware of and there's information that we're unaware of. And that basically gives you 4 quadrants. Aware and available, that is known information. Go to the right, we are aware that we'd like to have the information, but it's unavailable. That's a known unknown. We know that we'd like to have it, but we know that we don't know. Then there is unknown knowns, which is the left-hand upper corner. The information exists, but we are unaware that it exists. So that makes an unknown known. And then there is the dreaded quadrant on the right upper hand side, the unknowns. The information doesn't exist and we are unaware of it. So to give you an example, let's say that you have a problem in your project. Now, best case scenario, it is a known problem, but it could be that the problem, the symptoms of the problem are, that is a known problem to other people, but not to you. So that would end up in the left-hand upper corner. Take, for example, you're running a project, your company did a similar project previously, some problems that you have to solve as well were named in that lessons learned document. It's somewhere in the database, but you're not aware of its existence and you're not aware of the solutions either. So that would be an unknown known. The information exists, but you're not aware of it. So that basically means that how can you reduce uncertainty? You do that by maximizing your known area. You want to have as much information as possible. So the first strategy is to increase your awareness. The more aware you are, the higher the threshold goes up. The second strategy is to increase information availability. The third strategy is about improving your information effectiveness. Having a lot of information does not mean that you come to the right decisions or you solve the correct problems, come up with the right solutions. So information effectiveness is about making effective use of the available known information to come to the right actions. And the fourth strategy is improving your information efficiency. Information efficiency is about how much time does it take you to get to the right information that you need. So yes, you are effective in using your information, but it simply takes too much time to gather the information, process the information, report it, make graphs, and base your decisions and your actions on that information. So the first technique, Power Kanban, is about raising information awareness. Now I'm going to play a video. Some of you might have seen it. Please follow the instructions in the video. So it is easy to miss something that you're not looking for. Now, when I do this test, this is based on the work of two psychologists, Chabris and Simmons. I think they both work for Harvard, and they are psychologists. And they did these tests. They showed these type of videos to their students. And according to their research, about 50% of the people miss the moonwalking bear or the invisible gorilla. And they also wrote a book about it, The Invisible Gorilla. Now, when I do this test with people, what I see is it's even more than 50%. About 8 out of 10 people simply miss the bear. Now, this is something that really easily can happen in projects. We have deadlines, we're on the clock, we have stress, and there can be information hiding in plain sight in your face that you're simply not seeing. Take, for example, you have a problem that you need to solve, and you might see solution A and B, but you're completely overlooking C. And there is also the other variant. You might be completely overlooking a problem which is right under your nose. Information exists, but you're so focused on completing your task and meeting your deadlines and reporting and everything else that you have to do following your plan that you're not seeing it. Same with decisions, right? You might identify solution A and B, and you might be completely overlooking solution C, or you might be overlooking the need to make a decision at all, or an opportunity. Let's say that the moonwalking bear was an opportunity right in your face. It's there, but you're so focused on making your deadlines and making your plan work, you don't see it. But there is some good news as well. If you warn people, they found out, Chabris and Simmons, that if you warn people ahead of time, like, hey, count the number of passes, and by the way, look out for moonwalking bear, then the vast majority spots the bear. And this is the foundation of Power Kanban, which really starts with making a metadata model. You're going to ask yourself, right, what information would I like to see in a project? And by defining that information beforehand, just like a warning about the moonwalking bear, it will trigger you to spot that information. So you create a project metadata model of things you'd like to see, and that makes you sharper. For example, prerequisites. Now, without going into the content of the prerequisite, what would you like to see about a prerequisite? First of all, the description. For example, well, we need budget approval, we need business case approval, we need funding, etc., etc. So there is a number of prerequisites that need to be in place, otherwise you're not going anywhere. So as a description, second item would be the owner, like who's responsible for making sure that that prerequisite becomes in place. And maybe what is the latest date that the prerequisite must be in place in order not to jeopardize your project. So prerequisites you would like to see. Another example is decisions. What would you like to know about the decision? Well, at the metadata level, of course, the description, what is the decision about, right? I would like to have the owner who owns making that decision. There are urgent decisions and important decisions, right? Is it simply an urgent decision? Like every minute the decision is not made, we're losing time and money, or it is important. And if it's important, then there is a latest date that it has to be made before it becomes urgent. You can ask yourself, okay, is this a global decision or a local decision? A local decision is, okay, you make it within your team or within your project in a program, and it doesn't affect the others. But a global decision would mean that the outcome of that decision affects everybody else. And that means that there are multiple stakeholders that you want to involve in that decision. Who are those people? So you want to know about the stakeholders. You also want to know about, okay, what alternatives do we see? Alternative A, B, and C. You also want to note, okay, what logic are we using to select A, B, or C? Is it money, or is it cost, or is it quality? And the other thing is, and that is a key one, yes, we've made a decision, but how can we know and when can we know that we made the correct one? So these are two examples of metadata elements. You say, okay, what type of information would I like to see? And what attributes go into that model. So another type of thing we'd like to see, problems, just like the moonwalking bear. Let's say that was a problem right on the nose. You'd like to see that. So I'd like to ask the audience about a problem. Any suggestions about key elements, metadata elements you would like to know about a problem? Anyone? Right. Well, description of the problem, of course. Again, is it an urgent problem or an important problem? Who owns the problem? That's going to be the responsible person. What are the solutions that we see at this point in time, A, B, and C? What is the selection logic? How are we going to determine that A is better than B? And also, how can we know that we have, in fact, solved the problem? Another one could be a working assumption. Now, working assumption as a general has been always traditionally in project management, people say, well, you're not allowed to make any working assumptions, but you have to. Take, for example, an estimate. Any estimate is a working assumption. You know it's not a fact, but you have to make an estimate. Otherwise, you cannot build a plan or you can build a business case. So what would you like to know about working assumptions? Well, what's the description? Who owns that assumption? And the other thing I would like to know is, okay, what is the first possible time that I can verify that my assumption is correct? Say, for example, that you have a house painting project, right? I have a house I need to paint, 4 walls, and I'm going to say 8 hours per wall. 4 times 8, 32. Well, the rule is that I'm making an assumption. It is not a fact. You log the information in your assumption log. You assign an owner. And then you say, all right, after day number 1, I have actual data, how much time I used to paint wall number 1. And then I can check whether my assumption was correct. So I'll give you an example of project metadata model. It's quite extensive. Don't start with a large model, but this is just to give you the feeling about how a mature project metadata model works. And you always start when you introduce this technique small, with a limited number of metadata elements. And it's called the compass model because you have the needle in the middle and you have the orientations north, east, west, and south on the side. Now, the first type of information is like an epic, just like epics in Scrum. It's a large user story that denounces success. The second thing is decisions. Decision making takes time. And decision making might take stakeholders that might be on holiday. And decision making needs a lot of information, which again takes time, maybe from stakeholders that are again on holiday or sick or unavailable. So you want to focus on decisions. Now, in my previous project, I said to the team, people, when you come across a decision, log it and please enter it in the decision log. And within 2 weeks' time, we had like 74 decisions. And because we were aware of all these decisions and the team pointed them out and said, guys, this is a decision. We don't need to take it right now, but we need to log it because they were aware about that it was a decision. We managed to become proactive. Another thing was deliverables. You want to see activities, you want to see tasks. So this would be a good start. Focus on epics, like say, hey, this is epic. If you discover an epic that is more scope to your story, do you accept it or not? Decisions are important. Your scope is also defined by deliverables. What deliverables are you seeing? But we all know that as you start with your project, you stumble over deliverables that you haven't previously seen. That means that you have to find activities to create the deliverables, and those activities again break down in tasks, like 1-person jobs. Now I'll quickly run you through. Their stakeholders are a key metadata element. Who are these people? What do they want? There's drivers, the reason why you do your project. If you stumble across another problem that wasn't in the original business case, you want to know that. Benefits that you might have identified in the beginning, or emerging benefits. Prerequisites you want to spot. You want to spot constraints, time, money, resources, laws, policies. You want to spot dependencies between activities, dependencies on suppliers and other parties. You want to log your working assumptions. Again, every estimate is a working assumption. You want to log demands. So demands are about how you should do activities. Open ends, which are known unknowns. And of course, risks, problems, and crisis. So this is an example of an extended project metadata model. Now, the next thing we're going to do, each one, if you come across one, you enter an item in a digital Kanban board, like Jira, like Monday.com, like, well, you know, all the names. So what we do is we enter an item, for example, a problem, into Jira, and we log it. That's the first thing you do. If you come across a decision, doesn't mean that you have to solve it or that you own it, but you just log it and you fill out, okay, if it's not me that's owning the decision, who is then? And then you start working it. Now, entering all those different item types. So for each metadata model, we have an item type so that we can select and search. Now, entering a lot of items in Jira, that is very easy, but how do you get them out? So you need to link them. So if you create an item, say, for example, you stumble across a problem or a risk, then you have to, as a minimum, you need to connect it to an epic saying, okay, this is a problem that we're having. If we want to realize that epic, we need to solve this problem and we need to deal with this risk and we need to take these decisions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When it's software, you can connect it to your release. You might say, okay, this is a problem related to that deliverable. And you can do a number of different labels like accepted or rejected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So linking is paramount. What you then can do is you can visualize all your tickets, different ticket types in a Kanban board. So this would be a Jira Kanban board, for example. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have Epic 2 and Epic 3 is on our to-do list. We're working on Epic number 1. Epic number 1 translates in deliverable number A. We have a decision to make, which is about that deliverable number A, maybe a design decision. And in order to get the decision done, we have to do a task, like, for example, doing a workshop where we land that decision. Going down, we have deliverable B, and there's a problem with that one. And task 4 might be, again, let's say a workshop or some prototyping activity to solve that problem out. We have deliverable C in test, and task number 2 is related to testing. And problem 1 is done and decision number 2 has been made. So what we do is right now I'm running a program and I have several projects. Every project has their own board and the program has their board and everybody can access their boards. So if I initiate, let's say I'm project number 1, a decision, and all the other projects are involved in making them because they're affected, then I will initiate such a decision in my board, and all the other ones can see, and they will see their names that they are involved in that decision. And if it's a structural problem, then it's going to be solved at the program level. So the program has their own board. The other thing that you can do is juggling. Because you have separate tickets, you can then select and create lists. Take, for example, you select only my risk tickets. That basically gives me my risk log. If I only select my decisions, then I have a decision log, et cetera, et cetera. If I only select my deliverables, then I have a work breakdown structure or deliverable breakdown structure, et cetera, et cetera. So what we then do is we take, when we have planning meetings, we'll say, okay, let's look at our project from the prerequisite perspective. If the prerequisites are not in place, we're going nowhere. So we select, go into Jira, we select our prerequisites and get a list out of there. And then we make sure that those prerequisites are planned. Next thing is problems. If we have problems, we need to solve them. Decisions, we go through our deliverables, et cetera, et cetera. I'll quickly show you what it looks like. So this is our actual Jira board. And as you see, if we want to create a ticket, it's called issues in ticket. I select the ticket type, what it is, right? And we have a quick description and we can have a status on it. And we have a person who owns it. And if you say, for example, all right, epic number 1, give me all the information that I have in my project related to epic number 1, I simply filter to epic number 1. If I want to see all the risk, then I simply filter on risk, etc., etc., etc. So, Power Kanban, summary. It's a combination of project metadata technique and Kanban. And it improves your information awareness. Using the electronic Kanban board, it's very easy to distribute information. You simply give a board to all your teams. So it's either projects in a program or different teams in a project. It's very easy to access your information. And because you're working from a common picture, it's easier to do coordination. And you have a single source of truth or a single sort of information at least. And by simply selecting or filtering on different views, you can get rid of a number of different logs that you have to keep. Questions?
Thomas says a nice way to set up a tool. Absolutely. If I may just add, on top of these advantages which you wrote, I found it also as a very good base for knowledge management, as well as for collecting indicators or KPIs and improving and continuously improving your company. It's remarkable. It's it's like Jira on steroids. Normally people use it for issues, for their issues only, for their tasks. But by creating new issue types, you are boosting it up. You're making it so many more dimensional, and everything is in one central tool. Really remarkable, amazing. We have one hand up. It's Florian. Florian, please.
Hello, good afternoon, Paul. I had just a question. We are using Jira in our organization, and we try to implement that for a sandbox, for a little project to see how it works. So it's a satellite program, and often we have it's complex project, but so normally we use to track the schedule MS project. Do you think it could be as well a good tool to manage a schedule for complex project, or you think it should be limited in the usage to use Jira with Kanban?
I'm not sure if I understood your question. So what I understand from you, you're using Jira and Microsoft Projects, and your question was, can Power Kanban be used for complex projects? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and to substitute possibly MS Project, for example. What is your experience with that?
Okay, well, your question about tools, that goes very much into the next technique, but I would say that Power Kanban is essential for complex projects. Right now, in my company, I'm running a program where we implement ServiceNow, and that is going to replace our central system. So everybody is involved. So there's a lot of stakeholders, many business processes. So it's a program with 6 different projects under the hood, right? And the only way to get this coordinated is working from a single Jira. And like I said, the example of like 70 plus decisions was essential for doing that. So we queued everybody to create those decisions, and then how to coordinate that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, and also make sure that we make our decisions in time so we don't get delayed. We have, for example, once a week, we have a decision meeting. So we sit down with all the essential people from the projects and the program. We select our decisions, and then first thing we say, okay, good people, what is urgent and what is important? So just like a product backlog, the urgent one goes to the top, and the important ones, they go down. So we have a prioritization. And then we say like, okay, who owns this one? Is it global or is it local? And then we try to focus on the global ones. And you have like 6 stakeholders that need to be in the room to land that decision and agree on it. And then and that enables us to be proactive, because a lot of decisions you won't see ahead. So when the dust has settled, right, we had made like 150 decisions. Now, when we started program, we just went live. When we started the program, we were maybe aware of 5. And within 2 weeks' time, we had 70. And when the dust had settled and we went live last Wednesday, we simply looked at the log and everything that was done. We landed 150 decisions. Now, here's some food for thought. If you have 8 people in one room spending 1 hour making the decision, that is 1 workday less. Everybody's writing their hour in your project, but that's 1 workday less for you, goes straight from your budget. So decision making is time consuming, it is resource consuming, it costs money, and again, if you're late. So specifically in complex projects, you will have to reduce your uncertainty. Again, there are problems that you're seeing, there are those you do not. There are risks you're seeing and those you do not. The constraints you're aware of and those you do not. And by sharing that information across your teams, across your projects, across your program, across your stakeholders, people can access it and use it and make better decisions and make better plans and solve the problems faster.
Thank you, Paul. There are 2 more questions in the chat. The one being, do you have any suggestions on how to deal with too much information?
Power Kanban. So this is typically what happens. So the first thing you do is you establish your boards and you train your people. And the first thing you need to do is, typically in meetings, a lot of information goes around, but how much gets captured? Now, best case scenario, or no, the worst case scenario is that you as a project manager are writing minutes of meeting. So you're A, facilitating the meeting, B, trying to understand what's happening, and C, trying to log it and then write minutes of meetings. So Power Kanban helps you do this in real time. So when a new piece of information comes up, then you take a step back and say, okay, what this person is saying, what does it mean to my project? And say, okay, that's a constraint. He's saying, I'm going to be on holiday next week. Well, he's not available, that's a constraint. And we simply train our people. Everybody's writing down, okay, constraint. We have 1 or 2 or 3 people who log and say, we write down a constraint. Do I need to deal with that now? No, absolutely not. Somebody says, well, we might have a problem with the database. Are you sure? Well, we think, okay, it's a problem. Is it urgent or important? It's important, it's not a showstopper. Okay, we park it. Next thing that comes up, like, oh, we had planned to do these 2 activities in parallel, but we have to do them one and another. Okay, that's a dependency. We have to update our plan. So what you do is you look at the information and then take a step back and say, okay, at a meta level, what does this mean for me? Now, you log it as a certain item, and then you start prioritizing. Is this urgent or just important? And if you come across a problem that is urgent, the other thing is that it enables you to distinguish between management meetings and technical meetings. In a management meeting, if you come across a problem, you simply say, okay, you use the metadata technique. Who owns it? Who is best suited to own that problem? Not to solve it, but to own it. Well, let's say that Elena is the one. Then you say, Elena, you own it. It's urgent. And then it's basically up to Elena to organize a workshop with the right people later that day and solve it. It's a management meeting. Same with a risk. You say, all right, who is going to own it? Well, Paul is going to own it. It's an ugly risk. We don't like it. Somebody needs to be done. It needs to be analyzed, etc., etc., etc. So I'm going to own that. So what you do is that you create 2 types of meetings: management meetings, where you go through your logs, and then you have technical meetings. And then you save yourself a lot of time, because if there's one thing technical people hate, first of all, to be in planning meetings, in project management meetings. And the second thing is sit in a meeting. If you're a database guy and then you hear 1 or 2 network guys discussing their network problems, they say, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you save time and you save money and you keep people motivated. And the other thing is that if you teach your team this technique, this is the best part. They become project managers.
So one last question. I'm sorry, we have one more comment, but let's maybe take it for later. But one, I think this is a fast question. It is, but a good one. Is this the standard setup of Jira, or have you adapted it this way? Did you have to configure it, or is it a standard?
We configured it. Yes.
Yes.
We had to hack it. We had to create all those ticket types, but we made it work. Yes.
Yeah.
But you can do it with a standard Jira, but you need, in order to create separate ticket types, there are some constraints and levels. It's a technical discussion. We're not going to go there, but you can make it work.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. I'm not sure how we're doing for time. Oh, I need to hurry, I see. All right. Agile rolling wave planning. You might be familiar with the law of diminishing returns. There's two conflicting requirements. You have on the management asking for a long-term plan, but at the same time, you know that detailed planning just doesn't pay off. Like if I was to plan on a detailed scale what everybody's going to doing on the 3rd of December, you know, as soon as you start your project, most of your plan is already outdated. So you need to plan ahead enough to satisfy the management questions like, what is your lead time of your project? What is your budget? What is it going to deliver, et cetera, et cetera. But on the other hand, you don't want to plan too detailed because you're wasting your time. And planning effort goes from the same budget as everything else. So it is subject to the law of diminishing returns. Now, how are we going to deal with that? And this is where agile rolling wave planning comes in. So we're going to be planning at multiple levels with multiple time horizons and with different techniques. So at the highest planning level, we have our ambition level where we plan the entire project and we plan it in terms of epics. We define a number of epics that support the vision. The next step is we're going to plan at the decision level, which is again a shorter time horizon because it's impossible to foresee every decision you'll have to take. The next thing is going to be the deliverable level. Again, with a shorter horizon, you can define your scope in terms of deliverables. But again, as always, deliverables will emerge. We'll go and say like, oh, snap, there's a manual we didn't have on our radar. We need to write that. Or there is a firewall configuration, or there is some extra training we need to do, or a certification we need. Then you go down to activities at the activity level. And finally, we go at the task level. Now, the task level is defined as a single person job because in complex or advanced projects, you have specialists working for you and they might be working in multiple projects and they don't care about the big picture. When an electrician comes into the building site, he says, all right, where do you want to have your sockets? He doesn't care about the concrete or anything else. Same with a database guy or a network guy. He said like, hey, what network solutions would you like to have? So you'll need to control at the task level, the individual level. So starting with the ambition, an ambition or an epic gets achieved. A decision needs to be confirmed to be correct. A deliverable is something that needs to be approved. Either it gets approved or not. Approved deliverables mean progress. An activity gets finished and a task gets completed. So you have several waves and they get rolled up. So your task get completed. Several tasks means a finished activity. That activity creates a deliverable, which can be approved, hopefully, right? And those deliverables prove that you have made the right decisions. And they, again, support your epics that you're trying to achieve. So starting at the first level, let's say you're going to build a house and it's going to be your dream house and it's going to be a zero emission house. Now, one epic is that it is powered by renewable energy. And the other thing is that you like to have a greenhouse where you can produce your own vegetables the year around. Of course, that saves you burning diesel, going to the shop, etc., etc. And let's say you would like to have a swimming pool. Now, what you can do is you can create an epic roadmap. So the renewable energy epic, if I solve that one satisfactory, that means I can power my greenhouse and I have also power for my swimming pool. Right? So this is an example of an epic roadmap. How do these epic depends on one another to go forward? And what you can do is you define your scope, your vision in terms of epics. You create an epic roadmap to determine the dependencies and the priorities. And then you can create a calendar plan for the full project, saying like, okay, November, December, we're going to do epic number 1. January, February, we're going to do the greenhouse, and the other 2 months, we're going to do the swimming pool, and then the house is built. So epic level planning. And it's just like a PERT chart with the dependencies between your epics. Then we go down to the next level, which is the decision level, and we're going to create a decision network. So we have to decide on the power source, a renewable power source. Now, starting at the top, let's say we have 3 candidates. We can do geothermal. You can have a wind turbine. You can have some solar panels on your roof, or you can have a combination. Now, let's say for argument's sake that geothermal is not feasible. That is way too much investment cost. That leaves wind and solar. Now, if you go for the wind decision, that has an effect on the decision on the location of your house. You want your wind turbine separated from your house as far as you can, because the house will catch the wind. And secondly, the wind terminal makes a lot of noise. If you go for solar, then you can put the house probably in any spots on your ground, but you'd like to have the orientation north-south. You will not have your roof. You want to have it facing south, so you get maximum solar panel energy production. And again, if that also determines your roof angle, because depending on the place on Earth, there is an optimal angle on your roof to get maximum power again. And of course, you can go for a combination. Now, what you can do is you're not making the decisions, but you're mapping them out, finding their dependencies. And what you then can do is say, well, I can calculate my cheapest path, right, which is the solar panels. And wind turbines are more expensive to begin with to buy, and they need yearly maintenance. So you can ballpark your budget by calculating the cheapest and the most expensive options, depending on the choices you make through your network. So it's a decision network. The next thing, you're going to the deliverable level, which is where you create an information breakdown structure. Now, starting at the top, our dream house, that's our vision. We have 2 epics, epic level, a zero emission house, the greenhouse, and the swimming pool. And you can create, for example, like user stories. You can use user stories describing the requirements for your epics. About zero emission, we have a decision to make. About the power source, we have a constraint, which is an item type or an information type. In order to do that decision, we're going to have an activity, a workshop. We'll break it down in tasks. I need to send out an invite. I need to create a PowerPoint. I need to get us some price and statistical information. Depending on my decision, I have different deliverables. I can have solar panels, or I can have another deliverable, the turbine. And for example, in Norway, solar panels are free, but for a wind turbine, you need to get a permission from the local government. Again, they pollute the horizon, they make noise, etc., etc. So that's a prerequisite for having that solution. So what you see is you get information clusters, decisions, deliverables, constraints, prerequisites. So you can manage your uncertainty in a information breakdown structure. What you also can do is you can do bottom-up and estimation like you normally do in a work breakdown structure. And you can combine absolute and relative estimation. For example, epic number 3, I can relatively estimate my user stories. But in terms of deliverables, my solar panels, I can use absolute cost. So in an information breakdown structure, and this is very important, we are generalizing Scrum. So we're generalizing agile techniques. Scrum was originally designed for software, and the deliverable is always the same. It's working software. But if you have industrial type of projects, like building a house, well, there could be a software deliverable, but you have different deliverables, walls, foundation, plumbing, electricity. So, and your deliverables again, they will vary depend on the design decisions that you make. So a key thing about agile rolling wave planning and also Power Kanban is you're generalizing from software-oriented projects to generic projects. Now, then we go to the activity level. That is known information. You have activities, you use PERT, you use a Gantt chart, etc., etc. Nothing changes there. And the next thing you can do, again, we saw it in the Power Kanban on the task level. You simply have your epics on the to-do. We're working on epic number 1, etc., etc., etc. So you have tasks in there that people are responsible for, or you have decisions that people are responsible for, or you have deliverable number A, where you have the role of the approver, etc., etc. That is the Kanban board that we showed in the Power Kanban. So, agile rolling wave planning. It is multi-level, multi-horizon, and multi-technique. It is adaptive and proactive. It is the logical counterpart of Power Kanban. So all the information that you generate and put into Jira, you then put it into different plans at different levels to plan your entire project at a high level and at a detailed level on the short term. It's also generalization of agile towards non-software projects. That's an area where Scrum has long suffered or been struggling. And you can combine relative and absolute estimation.
Mm-hmm.
Questions?
Thank you, Paul. So we have one comment from Thomas saying, in general, I agree to plan and document decisions properly. However, in a development project, you take decisions all the time, minor to major. So how to handle discretion to not suffer death by documentation? The difficulty is you not always know the decision. The decisions are those with the most dire consequences when you encounter them first. Direct consequences, I can imagine. Yeah. So how not to suffer the death by documentation, how to tackle these two like very different decisions.
Okay, you can categorize your decisions. First of all, death by documentation. Writing a Jira ticket takes you a minute, so it's no drama. And the second thing, of course, you can categorize your decisions. First of all, there's the no-brainer decisions, right? We don't need to discuss them. We don't need to log them. The other ones are decisions where good practice exists, right? So you can follow good practice and nobody's going to challenge you. The next type of decision is where your decision has a consequence for time, cost, or quality. So you could say, well, I make the decision by myself as a team, right? But it will have an effect on the time or the cost of our project. Then it is about time that you raise a formal decision. And again, writing down a decision ticket, that's a minute of work. The other is where your decisions are very uncertain. Like, yeah, you're making the decision and you have like 5 alternatives. And then you need to ask yourself the question, yeah, I'm seeing 5 alternatives, but do I see them all? And if you're very uncertain whether you're going for the right solution, you might want to document because you want to have a very proactive opinion on, all right, how and when can we know that the solution we chose, number 1 out of 5, is the correct one? When do we retrace our steps? So uncertainty is a major key. And obviously the other one is global decisions. If your decision affects, let's say you're working in a multi-team Scrum, if your decision affects how the other teams are going to implement the software, again, that is a key thing. So for coordination purposes, for uncertainty, you absolutely want to document. But of course, there are no-brainers that you don't want to spend time on. A fool with a tool is still a fool. You don't document for the sake of documenting. You document for a reason.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We could continue, and maybe at the end we have some further questions. Thank you so much.
All right. For the next topic, I'm we'll ask you some questions. Nobody answered came on the mic, but I hope that you'll engage in this because I need your support, or I need your involvement in this part. So feel free to come on the mic, although it's recorded. Don't be afraid. So we're going to talk about PMO capability, and before we'll start with some history. During the 60s, project management was established during the 60s, and you had those large corporations like General Electric, Ford, and they were built in large divisions. So if somebody in the marketing division had a question, had to go up the hierarchical ladder to the other division, then down the ladder, and then up the ladder again. And as you can imagine, that took a lot of time. A lot of was lost in translation, and it simply didn't work. And at that point in time, we said, well, we need another working form, a temporary work form, which we call a project. And that was designed to cut all the overhead, cut all the bureaucracy, and cut all the administration. You assigned a project manager and a temporary team, and the project manager had a mandate to get a job done, an assignment done, and the people could communicate directly. And that was the need for project, was to have speed, to have agility, and all those things. Now, nowadays, if you talk to a technical person, they don't want to work in projects because they associate project with a lot of overhead, boring meetings, status reporting, lots of unnecessary work. So funny enough, something that was originally designed to speed things up is now associated with overhead, killing the project by documents, as I just was saying, and didn't pay any added value. Whoops, sorry. All right. Now, let's have a look at the PMO, and let's have a look at organizations. What is the function of the PMO, and what is the functions in projects and organizations? Well, if you look at organizations, there's really three types of organizations. There's the standing one on the left-hand side, then there's the temporary organization on the right-hand side, and then there's the informal organization, which is what we do at the coffee machine. Now, the standing organization is sort of the permanent organization, but that's not a good word because all organizations, they are dynamic, they evolve. New roles come in, other ones get combined, but that's where you have your management, you have your staff, you have your operations, your support, and your logistics. And the standing organization takes part of the business as usual. They run the business as usual. This is how you make your money. This is how you produce your products and your services that your society is working for. But there's also unique type of work that is non-standard work. It's probably never been done before, and that is where we have temporary organizations. Those teams and organizations are specifically put together of people who know the topic, and once the assignment is done, they get disbanded and often go back to the standing part of the organization. Take, for example, a crisis team. Let's say you get ransomware in your company or your computers are stuck. Well, you fly in consultants or a team just to manage that. And once the crisis is solved, you stand it down. An incident team, for example, you have a fire in your office. The incident team will take care of the fire. You can have a task force to address to come up with advice on some urgent measures. You can have projects, of course, and we have programs and portfolios, where a program is a collection of projects and a portfolio is a collection of programs and projects. And on the vertical side, you go from urgent to important. A crisis team, there's a ransomware or there's a fire in the factory, that is urgent. You don't care about efficiency, you simply get the job done. But as you go higher up in the stack, the nature of the work becomes more important. Projects are sort of middle of the road. You want effectiveness and efficiency, and that's why we plan. In a crisis team, when there is a fire, you don't do a lot of planning. You simply need to act because people's lives are at stake. Now, the PMO has a foot in both worlds. The project management office, it is part of the standing organization, but it deals with the temporary organization. So the PMO is responsible basically for all the temporary work organizations, which is a dynamic portfolio. And they need to make sure that the temporary organizations support the standing organization as best as they can. Now, if you look from a capability perspective, companies have different capabilities. It starts with R&D. R&D doing fundamental research about new production techniques, new products, new services. Once you get it into working in the laboratory, you go to innovation, right? You need to industrialize those findings. You also need transformation capability, right? You need to transform your company, maybe shifting to services. Most people don't know, but Toyota, for example, they started in the 19th century with automated looms. And in the 1930s, the Japanese government asked them to start building cars. So they transformed their business. You need operational capabilities to create the products and services, provide support, etc. You need to do organizational development. You need to improve the effectiveness and your efficiency of your operations. You need to have support capability like HR. You need to train people. You need to be compliant, etc. And you also need project capability. Now, here's the key thing. Whatever task you do, it's very likely nowadays that you're going to do it in a project work form. Research and development projects, you do that in their project work form. Innovation projects, you will choose the project organizational work as a work form to do your innovation. As for transformation, now operational, if you're like a construction company, every new building or bridge that you build is probably done as a project, etc., etc. So why is project capability important? Well, it is the key multiplier, it's the key force multiplier or the catalyst in everything that you do nowadays. The world is moving faster. Being able to do effectively and efficiently do projects is a key differentiator that helps your company to survive. So what is the mission of the PMO? Well, basically what you want to see is a steadily rising success rate. So the number of project success you had last year and that you have this year and you're planning on having next year, you should have a steadily increasing rate of success. That is the mission of the PMO, which basically means you need to learn not only from your mistakes, but only learn from what is happening in the world, in the project management world, new techniques, new tools. You need to adapt, right? And you need to improve yourself. And the proof in the pudding that you're improving is that rising success rate for your company. Now, here's a question. There's a man, he has a dog and he's married. And he's wondering, who's loving me more, my wife or my dog? So he decides to do an experiment. He locks his wife and his dog in the trunk of his car. Well, and he left them for an hour. Then he opened the trunk and guess who was happy to see him? Well, obviously the dog was wagging his tail. So he divorced his wife and he kept his dog. Now, question, was that a good experiment? And the key question is, if he had used another method, could he possibly have come to a different conclusion? Here's another one. There's an experienced CEO in a company and he has a project assignment and he says, well, he's heard about Scrum, he has heard about PMI in the PIM book, he's heard about Prince, and he's asking his 3 most experienced project managers, if you were to do this assignment, what method would you use? And one guy says, well, Scrum obviously is the choice here. And then he talks to his other senior project manager. He says, well, PIMBOK is obviously the weapon of choice. And the third one says, no, Prince. So he decides on an experiment. He gives the same assignment to 3 different project teams. And then he will use the iron triangle on time, on money, and the right quality to determine who's the winner. Now, let's say for argument's sake that Scrum was delayed on time and went over budget. Let's say that the PIMBOK was on time and on the money, and that Prince was on time and on the money, but wrong quality. So he says, right, PIMBOK is apparently the most effective method. Question. is this a valid experiment and a valid conclusion? Anyone?
Feel free to unmute yourself or write in the comments.
It was not the right decision.
All right, what's the problem with this experiment?
Each project is unique, and you may have some wrong criteria, decisions, or constraints that made it difficult to be on money or on budget, or you have other issues that you have to consider. So that could not only be the only decision to decide for one of those. It probably makes a difference if you look at the team and what the experience is with the team before you decide for any of those project methodologies. It's not only the project manager or the experienced one that should decide on this one. So it's always a matter of the people belonging to the PMO or belonging to the temporary organization to see what the experiences are, and maybe then to decide for the right methodology before you assign project.
Yep. All right. So basically, what you're saying, well, there's so many different variables.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. That PMBOK based on this experiment.
Yeah.
All right. Then the CEO says, okay, I'm going to change the game. I'm going to, because the team might be smarter or more experienced, I'm going to give the same team, and then I'm going to do first let the team do the project using Scrum. Then I use the same team doing the PMBOK method, and then I'll use the same team doing the Prince2 method, and I'll see what the outcome is.
Same project. For the same project.
Same projects, but the same team.
You need to have the same boundaries before you decide. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's the same assignment, same project teams, but at first, and I'm going to change only one variable, which is the method. First Scrum, then I do PMBOK, then I do Prince, record the results, and I determine which one is the best one. Is that a valid experiment? Yes or no?
We have a no in the chat. And Thomas saying that definitions of success are different, the selection criteria and towards PMBOK.
Well, yeah, I like that answer. Basically, obviously, a project is a unique assignment. A project is a unique assignment. If you've done it once, then you have so many problems solved and questions answered that the next time you do it, you're definitely going to be a lot better. And the third time you do it, you're going to be even better, because remember, you're doing the same assignment. Your team is going to be more tuned in. So probably whatever method you use, or not do a method at all, because you've done it so many times, the next one you always gets better. So that brings us basically to a problem. And I have another question for you. So how can you determine that a project method is better than the other one? Now let's have a look at medicine, how they do it. So you have a group of 1,000 patients, and they have same disease, and you're giving them every day. You're giving them medicine, and you record the results. On day 1, 50% is cured. On day 2, 83% is cured. Day 3, 99%, and day 4, 100% is cured. So the conclusion of this research is medical research. Okay, this medicine is effective. This drug is effective against this disease. Anyone in support of this conclusion? Or is please write in the chat yes or no. So do you support this conclusion, yes, or do you support this conclusion, no?
We have one no. Only with comparison.
All right, let's go to
one
comparison.
Yes, no, because we don't know how long the disease normally would last without medicine. You need a control group.
Exactly, a control group. That is exactly what we're going to be doing. So we're going to have a control group, again, 1,000 patients, and they're going to get a placebo. And you know what a placebo is? It is just a drug which looks like a drug, but there's no active ingredients. Then we record the results. Day 1, 51%. Day 2, 78%. day 9, 98, day 4, 100%. Question, is this drug effective, yes or no? Well, I guess probably everybody is going to say that the placebo is around the same performance as the drug, so the answer is no. And that brings us to the core of doing research in the effectiveness and the efficiency and the application of project methods. Because you cannot establish a control group, right? And because you cannot repeat the project, because you can do it only once under the same conditions. Normally also in research, you like to see independency. You'd like to see various researchers that are independent coming to the same control. And the other thing that you cannot do compared to research is variable control. What you normally do in a controlled experiment is you run the experiment once, then you change one variable, and then you look at the difference. All these things, control groups, variable control, repeatability, that is all impossible in project management because it's a one-time event, a project. So how do we then do research in project management? How can we determine, how does our research friends or our academic friends determine that PMBOK is better than Prince or Scrum or Agile is better than PMBOK? How do they do that? Well, basically what they do, they use for the majority either surveys or interviews. What they will typically do is they will send out a survey to as many stakeholders as they can. And what they can do is then they answer questions about the projects, and then they're looking for statistic correlation in the projects. So what I'd like you to do is, if you have open your notepad, please, on your PC, or take a piece of pen and paper, I'd like to take you a quick survey. So imagine a project that you have just done, and you're one of the subjects answering in a survey that you're getting from some researcher. And the first question is, the project was effective. And you can answer on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is least effective, 3 is neutral, and 5, yes, it was maximum effective. So imagine a project, and you are part of the survey, and the question is, was the project effective? Next question is, did the project achieve its goals? Again, on a scale of 1 to 5. Write down your. Next one is, the project was delivered to the requirements on a scale of 1 to 5. The project team was robust. The results were verified, correct, obviously. The project supported the company mission. And the approach was strategically sound. The team acted responsible. And the chosen methodology finally was correct. So again, you are a subject getting interviewed or getting a survey, and you're writing on a scale of 1 to 5. Now let's do a second survey. Same project, again. Make a new list, same questions, but slightly different. The project was efficient. The project achieved its objectives. The project was delivered to specifications. The project team was resilient. The results were validated. The project supported the company vision. The approach was tactically sound. The team acted accountable. And the chosen method was correct. Now, let's compare these two surveys. First question was about effectiveness. In the second survey was efficiency. Is it the same thing? Nope. Can you quickly elaborate on the difference between the two? First question was about goals, second one about objectives. Same thing? No, it's not. Then what's the difference? First survey was about delivery to requirements, the other one specification. Same thing? No, it's a different thing. What is the difference? Robust is not resilient. Verification is not validation. The mission is not the vision. The strategy is not the tactic. The responsible is not being accountable. And the method is not the same thing as the methodology. So here's a key thing. If you don't know the difference between these words, what question then did you answer to? And that brings us to our next topic. There is correlation, there is causation. So basically, based on these survey results, we're looking for statistic correlation. Like, did the project do anything that resulted in project success? What's the method? Is there a correlation between the project success and the correlation? Now, causation is not correlation. There is a website called Spurious Correlation by a man called Tyler Vigen. And he comes up with all kinds of statistical correlations that don't make sense, like Google searches for cat memes and the automotive recalls for cat bags. Just the fact that they correlate statistically doesn't mean that there's a logical relationship between them. So here's your question. All our scientific research based on concepts like method and methodology, mission and vision, effectiveness and efficiency, given that most people wouldn't be able to tell the difference on the spot, then you can ask yourself, even if you can prove correlation, what is the value of those surveys and reviews? And even if there is a correlation, is there causation? Now that brings us to method and methodology. Elena, I see that I'm a bit late, but I'll try to round this off in 5 minutes. So going to the last one, method versus methodology. Is it the same thing? No, definitely not, right? The methodology is the meta-level question. And there are frameworks, methods, techniques, and tools. So the methodology question in the dog experiment is that if you had used another method, would you have reached a different conclusion? Well, absolutely. It was a stupid experiment. The method that you choose was totally inappropriate. You can ask a similar question in projects. Yes, let's say we delivered on time and on the money. But if you had used a different method, could we have achieved better results? Or if the project was a failure, the methodology question would be, okay, if we had chosen Pinbook instead of Prince2, or Scrum instead of Pinbook, could we have avoided failure? So the methodology is the meta-level question. The methodology is about which methods are you going to use to prove the effectiveness, the efficiency, and application of methods. Then you have a framework, which is basically a collection of methods. You're probably familiar with SAFe, the Scaled Agile Framework. That is a collection of different methods. A method consists of techniques. For example, a Gantt chart is a technique, and I can use different tools to produce a Gantt chart. I can do it in pen and paper, I can do it with Microsoft Project, and I can do it with an Excel spreadsheet. So methodology and method are not the same. The methodology is the metadata framework. Now, the PMO is responsible for structural improvement. We need to learn, we need to adapt, we need to become better. And a key tool for the PMO is the project methodology, and that evolves around a number of questions. First of all, what is the meta method for analyzing the effectiveness and efficiency of project methods like Scrum and Pinbook, etc.? What is the range of methods that we can choose from? What's the population? How can we define the unique characteristics of a project? How can we then match that unique project or key characteristic with the correct methods? How can we determine success? That's your implementation cycle. Then you need to check, well, how are we going to make the assessment of success? How can we verify that we match it correctly? How can we validate that we evaluated the unique features correctly? Have we overlooked any alternatives of methods that we could have used? And we need to see confirmation that do our meta actually provide us with extra knowledge? So that brings us to project capability. The PMO is responsible for that cycle. They need to run that cycle on every project all the time. And they need to provide strategic project capability, which means the best possible portfolio of projects for my company. Then they need to provide technical project capability about maximum benefits, and operational project capability is getting the right results on time and on the money for my projects. That basically means that the PMO is responsible for project definitions, come up with proposals. There's often more proposals than we can handle, so we have to make a selection. In that selection, we need to come up with a priority. We need to authorize and release those projects at the right time to the organization, and we need to review to get a more insight about our projects and our ways of working. At the strategic capability level, we need to do staging, get the project in the right sequence over the year. We need to assign the resources and do resource scheduling at project level. We need to initiate them, provide people with a mandate. We need to supervise them, provide them with guidance, and we need to review whether we get the right results. And at the tactical level, we need the ability to run operationally projects effectively efficiency. So we need analysis capability for the requirements. We need to do design, realization, testing, and documenting. And on the control side, we need to do estimation, planning, tracking, evaluation, and reporting. And the PMO is responsible for training people in how to do that, providing the right tools, the right procedures, the right templates, etc., etc. So, PMO capability. PMO capability is a catalyst in all business areas. If you are good at projects, then you probably have a competitive advantage over your other companies you're competing with, because nowadays most work is done in a project work form. Mission of the PMO is to steadily improve the success rate, and it's about learning, adaptation, and improvement. And the project methodology, the 10 questions, that is the vehicle of advancement. And concise concepts are a prerequisite for logical reasoning. If you don't know the difference between method and methodology, then you probably are lost. And research finding hard truths is quite challenging because of the unique nature of a project. You can only do it once, there's no control group, you cannot repeat it, and you cannot have a placebo or a control group. And even if you have a successful project that delivered on time, on the money, the right results, and apparently, let's say for argument's sake, they use Scrum, just the fact there's correlation doesn't mean that it was Scrum that was the decisive factor that did that. So, questions?
We unfortunately don't have any more time.
Nope.
I'm so sorry for that. And please, if you have some further questions, or if you would like to, go even to some further studies and workshops from Paul, you can always contact him. From my side, I will just tell you thank you so much for this really great presentation. A lot of overview from different, great overview from different areas, 3 very important aspects. And you know, it reminded me of the first time I saw the formula E is equal to MC squared when I was small. And then I saw it again when I was in the school, and I saw it again when I was in the university. And every time I learned something new, and every time I understood some higher dimension of the formula. The same is with your presentation. Even though most of the stuff I knew, you gave so much dimension, and I hope many people today feel the same. You gave many interesting dimensions of topics which we maybe have heard of, maybe no, or maybe we hear from for the first time. So thank you so much for that, Paul. It was really great to to have you today with us. I see, Gunda, you have your hand raised. It was, yes, she's saying it was a great presentation, but due to time constraint, it was a bit of a hurry for such an interesting topic at the end. I mean, if Paul wants to join us, and if we have the chance maybe to invite you again for some next time, we would be glad to hear some more topics. Let me just briefly go. I'm so sorry for the delay. I'll just share my screen again once more. Sorry. Yep. I just share it for a brief moment to show you on the one side the Mentimeter. It would be really amazing if you could answer give us a rating. We have 11 people who already answered the Mentimeter, who voted. So please, for the other ones, we're around 37 people. If you have the chance, it would mean a lot to us to have your feedback, to see how you found today's event and to know about the future. About our next events, so we have next week on the 9th of July, it's Tuesday, we have an online event on PMP and COVID challenges overcome with Shivantika De Costa. Thomas, I hope I say it right. She's coming from Sri Lanka. Then we have there is a special event about climate risk. If you want more information, ask Martin or York. Another online event on the 17th of July with 2 speakers from France, Gian Fabio and Lucas, talking about the art of campfires, the power of human-centric approaches for transformation. Then our monthly face-to-face roundtable. And next month in August, we just have one event. It will be Garrett Locke on talking on psychological safety and the importance of human factors in leadership and team success. The one reason is because now in July we have 3 events, and the other reason is because we know it's summertime, people want to go on vacation, so we need a small break, so we put a little bit of a slower tempo, and then we continue strong in September. Sorry. So Stephanie, I don't see again the content. I'm so sorry for that. I hope the others are seeing the content. So one more time. So if you want to, this is our team, and I told you at the beginning we will have a strong enforcement. You can, in the meantime, try to guess from which country. I mentioned to you at the beginning we will be 6 volunteers from 5 countries now, so you can try to guess which is the winning country now. And if you, of course, want to join us or another team in the chapter, feel free to contact us. Feel free to also check the event calendar and join some other events. Now I will just stop the recording, and before I share